Welcome back to another episode of Before It Made Sense, where I share secular stories with you guys about my previous life when I was living for the world. Today we're going to talk about one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not covet. And this story probably starts off with me coveting at a very early age. My pop worked my whole life. He was always a great provider. He worked Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday and Sunday, 10, 12, 14-hour shifts. He always put food on the table. But at a very early age, he taught me to have a plan, follow education, go to school. Knowledge is power, right? I was probably like 14 years old. I believe I was a freshman in high school. He helped me get a job. He got my foot in the door at one of these companies he was managing. He talked to the owners and he gave me the alley-oop. I was able to work. Yeah, shirt and tie and all. I came straight from high school. I drove myself because at that time, even though I didn't have a license, he let me drive. And I drove from school to work. It was probably several minutes away. He got me in. I was working part-time, making money. He taught me how to get my paper up, right? I don't know what happened at that period of our life where somehow, we always had family that dealt with the streets. We had family that sling work, that ran blocks. They went in when it came to that side of life. They dealt with illegal substances. My pop was always the one with the great head on his shoulders. He managed to steer away from that for many years. But I think growing up, I always I saw people with hooked up cars, bro. I was always a car enthusiast. I love cars. Systems, rims. Always saw, the dealers, the D-boys on the corner, living a lavish lifestyle. And for some reason, I aspired, or not aspired to be a D-boy, but I looked up to having materialistic items, to having cool cars, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, motorcycles like that. That was like a childhood aspiration of mine, kind of like a dream, right? If I made it, I want to have a car with hooked up rims, this, that, and the third, right? We were working. I say we because he was working. He was managing companies throughout majority of his career. And I was, I had my little foot in the door making a chump change, right? But it wasn't enough, man. It was somehow, some way, I don't know. I guess he talked to some of our family members. I don't know how, because like I said, some of our family members dipped and dabbled in that particular market. We had a cousin who used to move some stuff, right? So it was actually his cousin. I guess it would be my second, third cousin. I don't know, but it was his cousin, one of his cousins. He got tired of working. He was kind of frustrated with the 9 to 5. I'm going to support my pop. I'm like, yo, I'm behind you, pop. All I know is one day I went to work and he done had it with work. I done had it with trying to work too. I wanted more money. I wanted more. And if this illegal substance can get us more, I'm with it, pop. Mind you, I'm just a teenager. 9 times out of 10, he always ran things through me, because I was his only son. So he would always talk to me about things. And I remember him telling me he had the thoughts or the intentions of possibly leaving. Well, I'm like, yo, pop, listen, you leave, I'm out. You quit, I quit. So somehow that day we came to a agreement that we was gonna leave. Obviously I was gonna leave first because he had to manage the building. I'm just an employee. So this was probably in 2003, mind you. That day I quit. Yeah, I straight up told my pop, who was the manager, but I ain't call him dad at work. I call him by his last name. So for example, if my last name was McPherson, I would say Mr. McPherson. I wouldn't call him dad at work. You know what I mean? So Mr. McPherson, I quit. But it was kind of like a funny joke between me and him because he already knew what the move was and I already knew what it was hitting for. I left. I went home. That day, that was his final day, right? And somehow we gravitated towards the illegal substance market. My uncles back in the day used to be in and out of prison and this, that, and the third. They ran blocks on Philly, Hope Street, Hope in Somerset. All sorts of stories I heard growing up. Shootouts with the cops, getting caught on the corner for soliciting. They would have different cars with track suits, different Adidas suits in the back, where if the cop would say, hey, you can't be on this corner, they basically just go around, switch suits, come back on the corner, look like a different person, and so on. You know what I mean? So those are the type of stories I used to hear about Philly in the 80s. I remember it was yesterday. This is a very detailed memory in my mind. My pop came home with some work and it was me, my cousin right across the table from me. He was probably 5 years older than me, 6, 7 years older than me. I was probably 13, 14. He was probably 18, 19, I don't know, 20-ish. I don't know how old he was. And on my right side, it was my Uncle Jose, rest in peace, big moo moo. And on my left-hand side, it was my pop. And we at the dining room table, right? All 4 of us, 4 men in the household. And my pop pulls out some pounds on the table. And mind you, I'm probably 14 years old and I'm bagging up. I'm bagging up with my pop right here, with one of my favorite uncles, rest in peace, Uncle Jose. My cousin happened to turn out to be a cop. In modern day, in today's current day, goes to show you. He'd probably arrest people for doing stuff like that nowadays, but he was once on the table breaking up work with us. Well, anyway, I'm going to jump around the story a little bit, but we started living that life. I support my pop. Listen, that's my pop. Like, at the end of the day, he's all I got. At that time, I was all he had. You know, even though he was taking care of nieces and nephews and all that, I'm still his blood biological son. We was trapping out the house. We was like, you know what I mean? Like, bro, I'm a minor, so I only know but so much. I only know what my circle's about, and my circle's about that. My pop was serving out the crizzle. We were serving work out the crizzle. You know what I mean? We built a fair share of clientele. We had a little front going on. I'm not gonna talk about the front too much, but yeah, there was things going on, you know what I mean? And we was making moves. People would come to the crib and cop up. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, evening, nighttime. They would cop up. Couple hundred a day to several 8, 9+ hundred a day. You know, some weeks were probably very lucrative for him. I didn't keep a tab on how much he would make, but I know we had very lucrative weeks. So much so that I remember as a teenager going to the kitchen and he would keep some of the work on top of the refrigerator in cereal boxes. Like, it would be in cereal boxes, bro. So like, we knew, like, and if he wasn't at the door, I would serve. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it was. Like, if somebody knocked or if somebody came up and pulled up, and it's like, and I remember, like, there were times when I would be like at the Chinese store, which was a few blocks away, and I'd be there ordering food, and somebody came in and they're like, y'all the people that, yeah, what's up? You know what I mean? Like, right? So it worked out, you know? Money was comfortable. It even got to the point where I started dabbling myself. I ain't gonna front. My pop kind of gave me like the little co-sign in the beginning. Like, me, my friends, my cousin who was older, if like we had a little circle, he would give us a bundle. You know what I mean? A bundle had like, let's say 26 Johns in it, right? You know what I mean? And if you sold 20 of them Johns, 6 of them Johns was your profit. So let's just say if you had a Bean 30 pack, 130 pack, you sold the $1.30. 30 was your profit. That's what you keep. 100 was what he needed returned, right? So he would have me, my friends, a couple people, couple folks. He would test us out to see who could move stuff around. Obviously, he was the best one at it. Because like, we would dip and dabble, you know what I mean? But he built his little network of who was trustworthy and who wasn't. Well, I ended up making my own connections and getting O's and work and quarter QPs and all that on my own. You know what I mean? At that time, he didn't really know. And I was having homies at school, in my high school, right, serve for me. So for example, in the beginning, I had homies like Carnell, Chris, Jahira, a female. Yeah, I had a female. It was a homie, Jody, Shank, that was her nickname. A couple homies, and I would serve them, let's say, a bundle in the morning. That's a $1.30 pack, right? So let's say if I gave Carnell $1.30, I gave Jody a $1.30, I gave Chris a $1.30 pack, example. And they trying to make their 30 piece. They trying to make their money. So by the end of the day, if they want that $30, they got to sling it around the school, right? And at the end of the day, I get my bean, 200-300. If it take them, sometimes it would take them a little slower, 2-3 days, you know what I mean? But still in 2-3 days, I was making a couple hundred as a high schooler, right? And I think at that time, not only was I slinging it, I started consuming it. I'll share that in a future episode, why and how I got into consuming it. I dipped and dabbled in using the substance, which I'm not, proud about, but we wasn't millionaires, by no means were we rich, but we were comfortable. I saw my pop every day. Back then, growing up, like I said, he worked shirt and tie every single day of my childhood life. I remember the smell of his cologne. I remember the morning routine, the VO5 that he would put in his hair and slick back before he went to the office to make these companies money. And now I got to see my pop 24/7. I got my father back. That was one of the best feelings ever. And money wasn't a problem. We lived great. It was cool until it wasn't cool no more. And we got caught up. I used to tell him, I don't think he recalls me telling him this, but I don't know if it was me using the substance and feeling paranoid, but I used to feel like we was being watched. I remember every morning coming outside, before I went to school to warm up the car or whatever, looking up the block. Now we're RHR, row home raised. That's what North Philly like. Most of North Philly is just row homes on top of homes, 40, 50 homes per block, really tight blocks. I remember every morning before I used to turn on the car or after turn on the car, I would come in the street and I would look up the block and I don't know, I felt like someone was watching me and I would give them the finger. Like if I was in a movie or something, bro, like I felt like we was being watched. I used to tell him, like, nah, you just, don't even. all right, whatever. I just felt like I was being watched, right? But remember I told you I was doing it in school too? I was dumb though. There were times where in school I could have got jammed up, bro. A couple times I came to close calls of getting caught. And my locker was full of hydroponic cannabis pictures. You know how normal high school students would put like, cars in their locker, like pictures of their family, maybe girls or something? No, if I had girls next to Bud. My whole locker, it was dumb because I think about it now, I'm like, yo. And there was times, this is like, I don't want to veer off too much on the story. I could say this for a future story, but there was times when I got caught up in school and they were checking lockers and it was like a movie, bro. But that's a different story. I'll say that for a future episode. What we're focused on right here is one day, I remember like it was yesterday, coming home from school, right? Coming to the block and seeing my door like this much open. I knew something wasn't right. My pop don't leave doors open. We don't live in a barn. Close the door behind you. I think I kind of got like a minor obsessive compulsive disorder where I always close doors behind me, sometimes lock them, but yeah, I always close doors behind me. Normally, I don't really like open doors. I don't like living in a house with an open door. Close the door, please. And you know what I mean? I knew something was wrong because my pop don't leave the doors open. So I remember going to the door and the door was busted. It was busted because, they used the little, what's that? I don't know what that device is called, but the boom, boom that they break the doors in when SWAT comes in. The house was torn up. The house was a disaster. Everything all over the floor, sofas flipped, TV. Bro, it looked like a tornado hit the inside of the house. From the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, there was cereal all over the floor. I'm talking about pots and pans. There was broken glass everywhere. I went upstairs. Every room in the house was flipped upside down. Even my room, my bedroom was horrible. Even my walls was pulled open from my bedroom. And I learned why. My pop told me why when he came out. But anyway, they booked my pop. They booked him. They caught him. A couple years later, after mingling and dipping and dabbling, we got caught up. They caught him. They booked him. Mind you, like I said, he didn't have a history. My pop was one of the cleanest brothers. My pop was probably one of the cleanest people in our family. My pop always, thought with his head. I think he got booked. I don't know. Was it because Ray Days was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He might have got booked on a Thursday. I don't know. But I know he came out a couple days later. That's why I say he probably came out, on a Monday? I don't know, bro. All I know is that we somehow made bail. He had money stashed up. One of my older cousins came through with the bail bread. I remember that night being in the house, bro. First things first, I called one of my homies, shout out Pito. I haven't talked to him in decades, but Pito, his real name, coincidentally, is Jesus. Yeah, that's his birth name, Jesus. I called Pito through. I told him what happened. House got raided. We spent that night just picking stuff up, trying to make things like manageable. It took probably that day or two later to get things to a presentable standard. Luckily, I had help. My homie stood. My homie was my boy. He used to sleep over and all a lot, so he stood with me. When we was upstairs in my room, one thing that I noticed is when we were moving up my little dressers and picking stuff up and this and that and the third, there was some work in one of them dressers. There was 2 ounces of bud just sitting there. I was flabbergasted. I was like, bro, didn't they raid the crib? Shouldn't they have taken everything? But they forget this? I felt like it was a setup. I'm like, bro, this is a setup. No way, bro. We went downstairs. Believe it or not, I rolled probably the 2 fattest Dutches I ever rolled at that time in my life. And I took the rest of it and I went straight to the toilet and I flushed it down the toilet. And we blazed in the living room, me and my boy. We blazed in the living room. That was the first time probably in my life in the house I blazed in the living room. Because I knew my pop wasn't going to be there. Even though my pop probably knew that I consumed it. Because I do remember him writing me a letter when I was younger about not, getting addicted to it. And he don't want me to end up like the kids from the TV show commercials. Remember the commercials? You remember where people would, their brains will fry like an egg and 10 years later, they're still sitting in the same spot. He ended up writing me a very passionate letter when I was younger that he didn't want me to fall down that route. But I think he knew I dabbled. But anyway, I blazed in the living room, bro. I flushed everything down the toilet and I'm like, no, I was paranoid. I was annoyed. I'm like, I knew they was watching. I knew, no way. They gonna come back and they gonna get me. So I'm like, nah, bro. Anyway, my pop ended up coming out. When he came back, he told me the story. He explained how, this all happened while I was in school. They were slick with it. Mind you, I was in high school driving a bright orange car to school. My car had rims, system. I had TV in it. I had a PlayStation 2 in 2003, which was fairly modern at that time, in my car. Now, mind you, many high schoolers didn't have a TV, yet alone a car system, yet alone rims, aftermarket lights, yet alone a freaking television with a PlayStation. I used to play Need for Speed Underground in my car, in a car that looked like it should be a Need for Speed Underground. But that's the aspirations. Remember in the beginning of the story, I thought it was dope. Like, homies drove by with dope cars. Every time I used to see a car, I mean, dad, look, a car got system. He'd be like, yeah, chill, son. Like, he would downplay it. But I mean, I always liked cars. It was kind of his fault where he got me into cars, because when I was young, he had cars with rims and systems. So I wanted to be not only like my pop, but I wanted to be like what I saw. But that's normal for a kid to desire the world. I was desiring things of the world, which led us down that path. Because if I would have talked some sense into my pop and said, no, dad, let's not quit. Pop, nah, I don't think we should quit. I don't think that. No, I was encouraging him. I heard he had an alley-oop from a family member. I heard he had connections from a family member. I'm like, yeah, pop. I think we should quit. Come on, let's go make this quick money. And look what it led us to. It led him to getting his first arrest in his life, messing up his record. And then he told me what happened that day. I remember he said he went outside to warm up the car. He was about to leave. And he said he saw a van or something with two guys sitting in it. They looked at him, but he didn't think nothing of it, because that's how row home blocks are. There's always cars parked directly behind yours. But he didn't think nothing of it. He went in, boom, boom. He went to go leave. He got in the car. He said that he drove off. He made a right. He probably went 3-4 blocks down. And when he got to another light under the L, the L that follows Kensington, there was either a car or bus blocking him. And behind him, he saw two dudes jump out with guns running up to his car. And he didn't know if he was going to get robbed, like if it was like they was going to jack him. You know what I mean? And they smashed on the window, open up the door. And they were undercovers. And they grabbed him up right there, put him in the back of the car. I think one of the other undercover probably drove his car around the block. He said that when they pulled onto the block, there was dozens and dozens of cops. So this was a well-calculated raid. They had long rifles, like the AR type style rifles. There was in SWAT gear and all that stuff. He said that he went in the crib. They was all ripping through the crib, different aspects of the house, different cops everywhere. They took him to the kitchen. I do recall him saying something about they noticed. The reason why there was cereal poured everywhere was because they found some of the work inside of, remember I said he kept it in some cereal boxes? So they were breaking open the real bags of cereal boxes and pouring them everywhere. He said they was disrespecting him, like screaming at him and all that, trying to get him to break. Then they went to my room. Remember I said that the walls was ripped open? They found AK bullets in my room. So they was like, where are the guns at? We know you got, we found, he's like, that's my son's. We don't got none. So my room was really trash because they found bullets. They found plenty of bullets in my room, but they didn't find no firearm. So they was pulling open the walls to see if I had them hidden back there, right? Yeah, man. And the thing was they were shady cops. They kept many things that they shouldn't have kept. I remember I had a brand new Boost Mobile i285 phone, the little Nextel flip phone, the chirp. Remember the chirps back then? I had the little chirp phone fresh. And I remember I had got into a fight like 2-3 weeks prior to that. And I had a i2, I don't know, was it a 295? It was one of the clear, anyway, I had my jaw customized because my jaw had back then we had flip phones still, that dates my age. But instead of putting cases on our phones back then, we were able to customize the actual shell. So we took it to a phone shop. I wanted a clear shell on my phone. So you could see through my phone. I had the little antenna with the light, like a disco light. Every time somebody called or chirped me, the light blunk. My jaw was hooked up. Anyway, I got into a fight. I lost that. It fell somewhere. Somebody picked it up. Boom. So I remember finally that I bought this new Nextel i285 and I wasn't supposed to take it to school because I got a detention like a week before. And at school, if you got caught with a phone, you get a detention. Then your parent had to come pick it up. So my pop said, when he got it, he said, you got to leave the phone at home because I don't want to go back to school to pick up your phone. So I remember leaving it plugged to the charger upstairs in my room while I went to school. Think I'm going to come back. You know what I mean? I had my phone there. Bro, they kept my phone, brand new phone. He had new sneakers. He had like Timbs. They kept fresh Timbs. He used to collect, and still to this day, he has a lot of old sports cards, sports memorabilia, action figures, things from back in the day, even before the trap days. Back when he was, working 9 to 5, he used to collect things. He was a collector, a connoisseur. I guess that explains kind of like, I kind of collect stuff. You know what I mean? I'm a chip off the old block. They kept I remember he used to have like this Babe Ruth gold card. I don't know if it was like a 24 karat gold card. Bro, they kept things. He had a nice, he told me it was like a $2,000 necklace. Like a diamond type of, like a female type of necklace. He had it in the sleeve and everything. They kept it. They just, they schemed. And I don't know if they turned in all the money that they found. They normally do that during raids. Cops will keep a lot for themselves and only turn in but so much because they don't expect you to say, hey, I had more work and I had more money. Think about it. If they find $15,000 in the raid, example, they can turn in $5,000 and say, oh, he only had $5,000. And you're not gonna say, no, I had more money. That means you was, you know what I mean? If they find 100 pounds in your crib, they can only turn in 20 pounds and keep the other 80 and flip it amongst themselves and make their own personal money. You're not gonna say, I had more product, because you're gonna be ratting on yourself. So that's how a lot of these SWAT groups or these narc groups that do raids, they make extra cash for themselves. The phone, they probably gave it to their son. The boots, they probably get, you know what I mean? The necklace, they probably gave it to their wife, right? All the gold cards and things that they, took that were collectibles, they probably went to a pawn shop and make extra money. It's like a bonus, right? I don't know how factual he was with this. I don't know if he was, trying to scare me, but I do remember him saying, my nickname is Jay. Growing up, my family, my close childhood friends know me as Jay, JR. Not a lot of y'all know that, but some of y'all who watch this know that. My name is JR. So he said, Jay. And when they had him in an interrogation room, they were trying to get him to rat his plug, but no. He refused to. He said, Jay. And they told me when he was in the interrogation room, and we know what your son is doing. We got an eye on your son. So I don't know if that's factual, if he was like keeping it a bean with me, or he knew I was already messing around and he was trying to like scare me away from it. Although for the next decade and a half after, I still dipped and dabbled up until several years ago, right? I was like, I knew it, bro. In the beginning of the story, I'm talking about, I knew I was being watched. I felt like everywhere I went, like I was being watched, bro. I don't know, I don't know if that was God telling me, right? That was the Holy Spirit telling me, giving me discernment, right? But I don't know, bro. So, he ended up taking that little charge, he got that record, you know what I mean? He had a lawyer. I think his lawyer was actually, before Mary Jane and all that stuff became legal, his lawyer was one of the lawyers that was actually trying to legislate and push for its legality. So he had one of the earlier lawyers that was like pushing for it, right? But they went through all the cases, case closed, everything's done. It's a thing of the past. It's over 20 years old. But that was trying to live for the world. Look at that. Look at that chain reaction of malarkey, of nonsense. Trying to obtain what? Materials? When we leave this earth, the thieves are going to steal our possessions and the moth is going to eat what's left. So what good is it to have, I call this junk, bunch of junk. It doesn't define us. It doesn't make us. It's just materials. It gives us temporary satisfaction. The ultimate satisfaction we get is from God, right? But I didn't know that then. I didn't know that I was living for the world. I didn't know then what I know now. Sometimes they say you got to touch the stove to get burnt. You got to learn on your own. And I wish I would have, but then again, everything happens for a reason. I don't share these stories to glorify sin. I share these stories to help you veer away from sin. Because I've been there, because I walked down that avenue, because I've seen what I've seen. So if I can save a soul from one of my past sinful stories, so you may look at me and say, damn, I used to do that. Him can relate. Like I can relate to him. Damn, so if you've been saved, I could be saved too. Look at you now, bro. Night and day. So I'm not trying to glorify anything of the past. I'm just trying to inspire you, motivate you. And it's not going to happen overnight. I'm just planting the seed. It's up to you to water it. If you're watching this and you're still living that lifestyle, you might laugh. You might chuckle. If you made it this far, maybe the Holy Spirit guided you this far because it wanted you to gain something from this conversation. But I have a bunch of crazy stories, like mad, wild stories. I'm just going to, slowly try to, share them in a tasteful manner with you guys so you guys can learn, You're not too far gone. You can still be saved. You just have to want it in your heart. You have to open up your heart. You know how they say, I was lost and now I was found? God was just waiting on you. He's waiting on you. Like he was waiting on me. And thankfully, the dominoes chain reacted in a way, the ripple effect led me to where I'm at today. So here's a little story about when I was living for the world and I was kind of coveting possessions that I should not be coveting. But yeah, guys, it ain't worth it, man. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Stay tuned. And most importantly, stay holy.